Hi, this is Anna Runyon from ClassyCareerGo.com, and today in my networking challenge I'm speaking with Carlene Harp. Carlene is also known as Resume Smith, and she's a professional resume writer. So I'm really excited to get her resume tips today. So thanks so much, Carlene, for being here.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay, so how can we make our resumes unique instead of boring and cookie cutter?
Well, first, never use a cookie cutter template that comes with your word processor. Employers see thousands of these, and you just won't stand out as unique. So you want a really clean, unique design that will draw the reader's eye to the key points that you want to demonstrate. The most important part of your resume is the top half of page 1 above the fold. So make sure your top selling points are up there. Second, you need to know what your personal brand is, and you need to sell it. So you do this by describing not just what your previous job responsibilities were or your job description, but you tell how well you did it. And the way that you do that is through specific accomplishment statements. Many job seekers have a hard time remembering, well, I don't know, I didn't have that much autonomy or authority, so I really didn't have an impact. Well, everybody has an impact. So a really good resource for job seekers who are wondering what that impact was is to go back at their own performance reviews. Look at what the SMART goals were that their employer gave them and which ones did they exceed, where did they excel. And they can use that and pull in details and then tie in the business impact and attach the numbers to it in dollars or in percentage of improvement or efficiencies, customer retention. And that's how you can find the business impact and really sell the fact that you didn't just do your job, but you did it well. And that's what's going to make the difference.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people just put what they did instead of like the impact and their accomplishments and all the.
A lot of people actually copy the corporate job description right into their resume, which, like I said, the employers see hundreds of these.
Yeah.
So you're going to look exactly like everybody else that was a customer service rep or a sales rep or a human resources generalist. So you need to really show the things that no one else can claim that because you did them, and that's your accomplishment.
What do you think about like 1 page or 2 pages? What's the rule on how many pages your resume should be?
That's a really popular question. A lot of people will say 1 page. That's not necessarily true. The key is that you don't want to have unnecessary filler in your resume. So 90% of the 3 or 4 page resumes that I see are that long because they're including information that doesn't need to be included. So what that does is it actually distracts the reader from the key points, your big selling points, because they have to filter through all the unnecessary information. So 1 page or 2 page really doesn't matter. 2 pages okay. 3 pages, you probably are just including more than you need to.
Okay.
And it's just not going to get read because the recruiters don't have time. But 2 pages is fine. If you have more years behind you, a diverse background, there's nothing wrong with a 2-page resume.
Okay. And do you recommend you use a different resume for each job you apply to, or do you use the same resume?
Well, it depends on if you're applying to jobs of different job categories. So, for example, if you're qualified for both customer service and human resources, you wouldn't use the same resume for both functions because they require different skills. So you want to make sure that you're focusing your resume on what is really important for that particular job. And like I said, if you leave out the stuff that's not relevant, that gives you more space for the stuff that really is relevant for each job. Okay. That's one of the number 1 mistakes that I see job seekers making is they try to have a one-size-fits-all resume that they send to different job categories rather than having a targeted resume for a specific type of position. Now, if you're an HR generalist and you're applying for HR generalist roles, you don't necessarily need to redo your resume for every single job you apply to because they're all going to require very similar skill sets.
Okay. And what about your cover letters? Often I hear, do cover letters even get read? Do they get read, and what's important to include on them?
Yeah, so that's an interesting dilemma. The truth is they don't always get read, but you need to do it anyway. And the reason you need to do it anyway is because some of them get read. And if you are applying to a company where the hiring manager or the recruiter really wants that information about you, you don't want to rule yourself out because you were too lazy to do one. When I was a recruiter, I would actually read them in reverse, meaning I would read the resume first, and if the candidate had the basic qualifications that I was looking for, I would then go back and read the cover letter. So no, I didn't read all of them because if I'd already ruled them out, there was no reason to. But for the ones that I was seriously considering, absolutely, I read it, and it made a really big difference for the candidates who had them in well. So I like to think of a cover letter as a frame for your masterpiece. So if your resume is a masterpiece portrait, here's your resume, this is what I am, this is who I am. Mm-hmm. The cover letter frames that. It's your why. It's, why did I choose this career? Why do I want to work for your company? Why do I want that job at your company? And why should you hire me? That's the really important thing that a cover letter should cover.
I love that you bring your background of being a recruiter too, so you know what you were looking for when you were a recruiter. So
yeah, and it's good insider knowledge that most job seekers don't have the benefit of somebody on the inside telling them how to navigate the system. So that's one of the things that I love using for the benefit of my clients.
So what made one candidate stand out from the other? Was it just they fulfilled all the requirements, or was there any special things that makes one candidate stand out?
Really, the ability to articulate what they can do for the company. I don't want to see a resume where I have to read long blocks and long paragraphs of text to find the information. I want it to be really easy to read. I would open my inbox and have hundreds of resumes to filter through on Monday morning. So yeah, and most recruiters now are using applicant tracking systems, so they're not going to be looking at every resume. They're going to be using keyword searches to find the ones, and then when they're actually looking at the ones that are returned in the search, they want to see that information within that first 5 seconds.
Okay. So making sure you know what your keywords are is probably really important when you're applying.
It's important if you're applying through an applicant tracking system. My recommendation for job seekers is to avoid that at all costs and actually use networking to get a personal referral to a position. Because then even if they say, well, you need to apply through the ATS, someone is going to be going and pulling your information out of the ATS if you have that personal referral to the company. So the keywords become less essential in that case. But if you can't come up with a connection within the company, or none of your contacts know anybody there, or you just happen to hear about an opportunity online, then yeah, that's when the keywords become really important to get out of the black hole of the ATS.
Okay. I love that you talked about networking. I'm a big proponent on my blog as well.
Yeah.
So how can you use networking on LinkedIn to get that job or to get a referral?
Well, LinkedIn is, a lot of users misunderstand what kind of a tool it is, and they think it's really just like an online version of your resume. So yes, it has that component to it. Yes, you need to have your profile full and have some keywords in there so you'll be returned on searches. But the key is to think of LinkedIn as a large networking room. It just happens to be located on your computer instead of at a conference center or something. So when you go to a networking room, you're not going to only talk to people that you already know. You're going to be walking up to people, giving them a handshake and saying, "Hi, I'm Anna. Mm-hmm. Tell me about yourself." So the same rule applies with LinkedIn. You want to participate in group discussions, answer questions to show your knowledge and your subject matter expertise for your target job, and post status updates so that people who do follow you can see, the kinds of things, ideas that you're sharing with the world. So having those conversations in those places can kind of give you that handshake to then send someone a connection request and say, hey, we're both in the same group and we commented on this thread. I really liked your ideas. Would you mind if we connect? And then you can send them a personal note to saying, tell me more about you, and use it like you would in real life networking situations.
Okay. So is it okay that our LinkedIn profile is a lot longer than what our resume would be? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine. LinkedIn is designed that way. Every field has SEO value. Every field is keyword searchable. So it's fine. Know that it's important, just like it is on your resume, that you're not including more information than is really needed. So your college job, volunteer work, for the moms group that you belong to.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not relevant to the type of job that you're applying for, don't put it in there. So it's not as much about the length as it is about relevancy.
Okay. I probably need to scrub mine a little bit. It's been a while. Okay, so another thing you talk about is your online image and like making sure when you're Googled, like you come up with a good image online. So I'm curious if, as a recruiter, did you Google your applicants, the job searchers?
Yeah, I did sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important.
And I tell my clients because I want to know what recruiters may find about them.
Okay.
So the key to staying positive is to just don't complain. Don't be a negative Nancy. You never make comments about your job, your boss, how bored you are at work, how frustrated you are that you've been in the job market for a year and no one's hired you yet, because that, it not just leaves a trail behind for recruiters to find, but it sends negative vibes out there and it reinforces those negative thoughts in your head. So posting a positive comment, good things are just around the corner or something, even if you don't really feel it,
Mm-hmm.
It puts that positive thought into your own head as well. So that's important.
So if it's not looking very good, do you have any recommendations for how we can get our positive images more towards the top in Google?
Just be active wherever you have sites that you want to show up at the top. That's where you want to have the most activity. Okay. So if you have a blog or if you're active on LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you have those. You're really, really being active and getting those link backs, just like you would if you had your own website. And continue Googling yourself to see what's showing up on page one. If there's something that's less than positive that you have the ability to remove, maybe it's a 10-year-old MySpace profile. Delete it.
Yeah. That's so good. So are there any like common mistakes that you're seeing job searchers make right now?
Yeah. The generic resume is one of them. Mm-hmm. The catch-all or one-size-fits-all. Being negative is another, especially on Twitter. I see a lot of frustrated, and even some LinkedIn groups and questions. Those are indexed by Google. So if you ask a question on LinkedIn about how do I deal with my bully boss, guess what? That's public.
Yeah.
So those are two. But honestly, the biggest one is giving up. Buying into the idea that you're not worth it, you don't have enough to offer, letting that frustration that is natural, letting it really affect your psyche, because that will be reflected in your interviews and your interactions with employers. So what I recommend is that job seekers actually go back, reread your resume, reread your old performance reviews, look at all of the great things that you have done. Remind yourself frequently that, yes, you matter. You have made a difference for your employers, and you will make a difference for the next one. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to.
Yeah, I love that. You have to stay positive, definitely. Because employers, feel like they can tell, too, when you're negative and not confident.
Absolutely. That was one of them. That was actually one of the primary ways that I would screen candidates out when I would do the initial phone screen, is if I got a negative vibe, just talking about their last 3 companies and how reasons for leaving were because they weren't managing things right. I'm thinking, well, there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
Yeah.
So this is the question I ask at the end of all my interviews. What is one thing you wish you would have known as a young professional woman just starting out in her career?
Be patient. It's easy to think, oh, I finished my degree, I have so much to offer. How come I'm not getting promoted? Or why didn't they choose me for that project? Realize that, yes, you might be really bright and have a lot to offer, but at the beginning of your career, you're really there to learn. So be patient. Recognize that good things will happen. And I don't mean just sit back and wait for them to happen. I just mean, don't think that just because you weren't selected for that promotion that it's a sign that it's never going to happen. You should leave that company and make a big decision on that. When I was in my early 20s, I was in that situation. People were getting promoted ahead of me, and I was thinking, gosh, what's wrong? And I've done everything. The company had this real formal training program, for the management advancement. I'd jumped through all the hoops, and I finally went to the director and said, tell me what's not on this checklist that I need to be doing. And it was a really great development opportunity for me. And it turned out really well. I took his tips, and I ended up getting a totally different opportunity than the track I thought I was on, an international opportunity that those other people that had gotten promoted ahead of me didn't get. So it did all work out, and I just needed to realize what I needed to develop in order to get there.
I love that. I love, because you never really know what's around the corner and what's going to happen next. And I also love that you took the opportunity to talk to your boss about it, too. I think that's one thing a lot of people just, don't do that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's important, whether it's your boss or HR or someone else that that's a mentor, it's important to really get that feedback from someone that has more experience in the professional world. And, find out what are the soft skills that you need to develop and how to develop them.
Definitely. Awesome. So where can people find out more about you online?
Well, my blog is resumesmith.com, and that's hyphenated, so it's resume-smith.com. And my blog is theresumesmith.com with no hyphens.
Okay.
So either way, they can find me, and from there they can find the links to Facebook and Twitter and all these social media connections.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today.
You're welcome.
Okay. This is Anna Runyon from ClassyCareerGirl.com.